Everyone, welcome to Small Farm Living. This Just Our Imagination challenge, we had to use a light bulb, wrapping paper, and some stove burner covers in any one of our crafts. And it is hosted by Kathy Jo's DIYs, Rustic and Lace DIYs, and co-hosted by BB's Crafty Haven. Their channels will be linked below as well as the playlist, so be sure to check that out at the end of the video. But for our first craft, we are going to be working with our light bulb. Now, I have never honestly worked with air dry clay before. Shocker, I know, but I haven't. And so I was just thinking, I don't know how this project is going to turn out, and I was really nervous, but make sure you watch this video because I think you'll be just as pleasantly surprised as I was. But what I needed to do is I am going to make a mushroom with this light bulb, and I needed to roll it out, and the first round wasn't long enough, so I did it again, and then I cut a straight edge off of it because that straight edge needs to match up kind of with the top of the light bulb there, and I want the seam between the top of the light bulb and the base to be as seamless as possible. So I'm just going to work it all the way around with my thumbs. And trust me, I cut out so much footage on making this. The video probably would have been over an hour long just because I'd never worked with it before, and it was fiddly. But I got it to this side, and then I cut off the excess, and then I realized that the amount hanging down onto the base was too much, so I cut that all the way around. And then what I ended up doing was taking the lip that was hanging down and folding it so it kind of was a thicker piece. And the reason why I wanted to do this is even though this light bulb really kind of looks like a mushroom already, there wasn't enough girth, I guess you'd call it, underneath where it rounds down, and I really wanted it to look more authentic like a mushroom. So that's why I did this. And again, I worked and worked and worked with this clay to get it the shape that I wanted to, and then I got another piece and I rolled it out a little bit because I wanted the transition between that thick lip that rolled down from the top of the light bulb and curved down to the base of the stem, again, to be more seamless and to look more natural like a mushroom. So again, all I did is I just rolled it all the way around, cut off the excess, and then made a straight line around the base there so that I could kind of maneuver it with my fingers to be as seamless as possible. And how I did that was I took a little dish of water and my finger, and I just dabbed it in the water and rubbed my finger on the seams, and it just kind of melded them together, and you couldn't tell in the end that I had separate pieces there. So it worked out really well. Now the top part, this was the hardest part for me, I think, because of the transition between the smooth top of the light bulb and the air dry clay, and I fiddled with this for quite a while as well. But once that was done, I took my fork and I just kind of put it in and scoured down to make the lines like you always see on the undersides of the mushrooms. And I did this all around the whole base. And when I was done, I didn't film this part, but I just took a little steak knife and I added more lines in between those lines because by the time I was done, it just didn't quite look like a mushroom would look underneath. The fork lines were just a little too big. So once I got that all done, then I took a little bit more water and I just rubbed the base where the fork had kind of scuffed it up a little bit. And then I thought, you know what, the base of mushrooms are kind of a little bit of a deeper tone to them. So I took some of my antique Waverly wax and added some water to it so that it was very runny because I wanted it to get down into those little creases that I made with the fork, but I didn't want it to be super, super dark. So I just kind of was experimenting here, and I used a napkin or it might have been a wet baby wipe, but I was trying to wipe the excess off, and this is what it looked like when I was done. I wasn't sure if I really liked how dark it looked, but I was just going to let it dry and then decide. Then in the next, where I guess the end project coming up, I had made some paint with some baking soda in it, and this was the excess. So I used some of that and added a little bit of kind of a light brown to it to make a little bit of a beige tone for the base because the white was just a little too bright. And the nice thing was is this paintbrush that I used gave it the line texture going down automatically, so I didn't have to do anything additional to that. Once I got that done, I set it aside to dry. And then I mixed up some red paint, again with baking soda in it, because I really wanted a texture to be more natural and not just a slick, smooth surface on this mushroom. Now, honestly, I'm not a huge mushroom girl. My daughter is again, but not me. And I didn't know if the color of the mushroom actually, like rounded and curved underneath the mushroom. But I was like, well, if not, I guess it's just my imagination challenge, right? I'm just going to do it. And so I put red around the bottom. And as soon as I did that, I set it on top of a little terracotta pot and let it dry. And once it was dry, I had to start on the top of the mushroom. So I flipped it over and the stem base went down inside the terracotta pot, and it sat on there very nice, thankfully. But you can see, now this is just one of those little LED light bulbs that you can get at the Dollar Tree, and the top of it is not glass, it's actually plastic. And because it's so thin, it made the streaky paint thin, I guess I should say. So it actually took 3 coats. And this is the end of my 3rd coat that I was putting on. And you can kind of see in the light there the texture that baking soda gives it. I really liked it more. It looked more like a natural mushroom to me. And once I got that done, I went back with my sander because the transition between the air dry clay and the top of the light bulb, like I had kind of feared, was a little wonky. And so I sanded it down, and it did take a few pieces back down to the bare light bulb. But in the end, that worked out because that's what needed to happen. So I wiped off the powdery residue, and I added some more paint around the whole thing, to the sides and again to the top, just giving it another coat. And I really like this texture of the baking soda in the paint. It really does give just a deeper element to a paint job, especially when you're trying to do something natural. Now, here's where I changed my mind. I was like, I think that is just a little too dark for my preference. So I mixed up some more paint and I watered it down, but I put a little bit of a beige tone in it and I rubbed it over the top, and then I dabbed off the excess because I kind of wanted to still be able to see those deeper veins in there. And I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but you can. And then I deepened up the paint again, and I put a little extra layer on top of the base because that was looking too white to me as well once it dried. Then once I got that done, I added more baking soda to my paint because I wanted to start working on the polka dots on the mushroom, and I didn't want them to just lay flat on top of the surface. I wanted them to kind of be raised up, so it just gave it some more depth and character. So I'm not going to bore you with the whole process, but we'll just quickly go through. I just was trying to add different sizes, go all around the mushroom, and then I did end up putting some on the sides, and then some kind of like they look like they were going down to the underside of the mushroom. And now I got my last one on there, and I am going to set this aside and let it dry. And then I grabbed another terracotta pot, my Antique Waverly Wax, and all I'm going to do is just give this a coat onto the pot. And at first I was going to start swiping it up and down, but I thought, no, I better go with the grain of the pot. It'll probably look better. And all I did was I just smeared it on. I took a wet baby wipe and I wiped it off. And I went around the pot about 2 times just to get the coat that I wanted to get, because this terracotta pot really soaked up that wax. So it disappeared quickly. But once I got it all on there, this is how it looked. And then I set it down and I did the rim, and I actually did down inside the pot just a little bit so you couldn't see the color change. And then I took some of my Oasis foam and I put a bunch of glue on it and stuck it down into the pot, and then I added little pieces on each side. And then I just took the mushroom and made a slight indent so I knew where it would go. And the reason I did this is because if I tried to shove it down in there, it would just mash it and it wouldn't give a good solid fit. So I cut out a space for that light bulb to go down inside there with just a little kitchen butter knife. And I added a generous amount of hot glue, and I got it shoved down in there. And once it dried, then I wanted to add some moss around the base here. And this moss is actually some that I just went out into our little wooded section and picked up, put it in the oven at 200 degrees and let it dry. And after I added a few more embellishments, I put this cute little frog in there. And I think he turned out so cute. I have to say, I was so nervous about this part of the project because, again, I've never worked with air dry clay before, but thank the Lord it turned out. Let me know what you think of him. I think this is going to be a present to my daughter for her kitchen because, again, she loves mushrooms and my granddaughter likes frogs. So I think this will be a perfect fit for her. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Now this next one is the stove burner covers. I got these at the Dollar Tree. Not a fan of the print, and I wanted to spray paint these white. So what I did is just out on my front porch, it's cold here, so I had to like let them off gas for about 10 minutes before I brought them in the house to get a little bit drier. And you can see there's a line there. That's not a difference in paint. That's just the shadow from the overhang of my porch. And I ended up doing 3 coats on these. My husband is a spray paint wizard, but I am not. So I was trying to be very careful because I didn't want any runny streaks. And this is how they turned out when they were done. Perfectly fine. Now the part that I spray painted is going to be the bottom side anyway. And the top side that is going to be up on the tier tray is the natural finish that they came with, which has a little bit of a bluer tone to it. And that was fine with me because I found this candlestick at the thrift store, and I'm just going to use this as the riser in between. So I just took some E6000, and my E6000, oh my gosh, it's getting harder and harder to get it squeezed out of the tube, but I just glued it to the bottom one, and then I put some on the top piece and then pressed the top one on, and I let that set and dry overnight. Once that was dry, I had spray painted these little wooden beads that I just gotten at the Dollar Tree, and the tube had completely dried the nozzle shut, so I just cut open the end and squeezed some out and started putting my little feet on there with these beads. And the burner covers are kind of lightweight and flimsy. It might just be the ones from the Dollar Tree. I'm not sure. I don't really use them in everyday use, but because of that, I wanted to put 5 little feet on this. And the reason why is this one is supporting the candlestick in the center, because look how flimsy they are when they move. And by putting that there, it supports the weight in the center of this for the candlestick. So this is how it looks all done and just all by itself. I think it's pretty just like that, but I had to embellish it, and I kind of went springy because I'm so ready. I am a gardener, and if you haven't seen my channel before, I do a lot of gardening videos as well. So let me know what you think of this one. I just wanted to keep it very simple so it could be used, you know, for multi-purposes. I didn't want to go any one specific color on this. And it's cute little feet. Now the last project that we're going to do, and this one will probably go pretty fast because it was pretty simple. I got this little bird at the thrift store, but he originally was from the Dollar General, and this wrapping paper again was from a stash that I got from my grandmother when she passed away. It's some old Mother's Day wrapping paper. It has some flaws on it. But my goal, what I want to do is I don't really want to use the mother word. I'm just looking to put my bird on there to get those pretty flowers. So what I'm going to do is take off this little family sign on the front, and then I was going to try and take this off. I thought it would unwind, but it did not. So I just left it on there, popped this little family sign off, and then I am going to use my little finger sander kit, and I'm going to get the rest of this paper off. And if you have never used one of these finger sander kits before and you do like little fiddly crafts, these are really awesome. And I have a link down in the description below. You can check that out. They're pretty cheap. And I'm just going to work on getting all the paper off of this. And I will show you. It makes quite a big mess, but it definitely does get the paper off. And then what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to flip it over and give the paint on the backside a little rough sand so that it takes some of that shininess off. You can see the mess that it left behind. And I took a damp paper towel and wiped off some of that excess. Now I'm going to cut just a square of this paper out just so it's much easier to handle and work with. And then I'm going to take my little bird and set him on just as much of the floral portion as I can. I took a pin and then I outlined the bird, making sure that my pin gave plenty of space around the outside because I definitely want overhang when I get this put on there. So I'm just cutting out big pieces of it first just so I can handle it easier, and then I will fine tooth cut out the rest of the bird. And I don't cut on the line, I cut just outside the line so that again I have enough paper overhanging the bird so that I can sand off the excess. And here is what the cute little floral bird looks like. So we will get him set on there with some Mod Podge. I'm going to put Mod Podge on both sides, and then I'll set it up like this to dry so that I can iron it on later, and I'll be using this little iron. I'm going to unbox it here in a minute so you can see it. But first we're going to get the Mod Podge all on this side of the bird. Then we're going to flip him over, and we're going to put Mod Podge all over the back side of the bird. And again, I'm just going to set him up to dry, and I'm going to wipe off any excess Mod Podge that got up on the gray portion, although we're going to be fixing that. So here's the little mini iron. These are really cute and fun, and they are cheap. They're under $10, and it plugs into a regular outlet. It has a little toggle switch right here for turning it on and off, and then there's a little light that actually turns on. It has a cute little smile. That cracked me up. But here's the little light. It lets you know that it's on. And we're just going to set it down and let it come up to temperature. So now that the Mod Podge is dry, we're going to set the little paper bird on there. And you can see the overhang. That's exactly what I wanted. I'm going to take my piece of parchment paper once I get it straight. I'm going to set the parchment paper over top. And then I'm going to grab my little iron now that it's hot. And I am just going to slowly work my iron over the top so that the heat penetrates down through the layers to the Mod Podge, reactivates it, and glues my birdie down in place. And that's what it looks like. He's all glued on there nice and good. And we'll do the other side as well. And then once that is done, we are going to take the little mini sander, and in a downward motion, we're going to sand off the edges of that paper so that it's flush. Made a nice little mess, but you can see how perfect it made the edges. And it did rough up the gray part, which was fine because I'm going to paint that anyway. So here I had painted one layer with just regular paint, and I went in with a couple more. I think I did one more layer, and I wasn't satisfied with that. So I did a second layer, and I just worked my way around the whole bird. And then once it dried, I didn't really like it. It was kind of streaky. So what I did was I took some more of my white craft paint. And if you don't have access to this where you are, I do have a link for that down below as well. And I added some baking soda to this because I wanted a little bit thicker texture on the bird. So I proceeded to paint another layer on top of what I had already done the first 2 times of the thicker with the baking soda on it, and I really liked the way that turned out. It just gave the bird a little bit of texture, and it covered up all those streaky marks. And then once I was done doing this, and it was dry, I took my little sander kit again, and I went around and sanded off any of the white that overhung on the edges. And then I took some of my Antique Waverly wax, put some water down on a piece of wax paper, and mixed it together because I wanted it to be very thin. And I just started rubbing that around the bird, and I did all around the white section of the bird as well. But I just wanted to give it just a little bit of an antique-y distressed look, and I set him aside to dry. And here's what he looked like when he was done. I was so glad I got to use some of my grandma's paper again. It made me really happy, and I think it turned out really sweet. Now, because we're coming up on Valentine's Day, I just made a little heart out of the same paper and glued it onto some cardboard so that he had the Valentine vibe. So now let's do a recap of all the projects that we did today. We'll start off again with our little frog. Again, I just love him. I'm sorry. But I do. I just think he turned out so sweet. Our little frog, our little mushroom. But I just love the frog in there. And then here is the bird again with the wrapping paper, and then the tier tray with the burner covers. Let me know down in the comments if you have a favorite and which one it is. I just wanted to let you know I appreciate you hanging out with me. Don't forget to go down to the description, check out the playlist for all the other fun things the other creators came up with. But I hope you have a great day, and I will see you next time.